when we were tasked for this, I can remember going to the sergeant major and saying, "Okay, we need night vision," and there's none left for you. We need suppressed weapons. I think the comeback was my nickname in the regiment was Geordie. This guy came and said, "Geordie, who the hell do you think you are, James Bond?" And I'm like, no. And that, mind you, that was the thinking at the time. It was suppressed weapons, who uses them type of thing. And then it was the mapping. The mapping we were supplied dated back to 1945, which was.
I remember reading that.
Yep. We knew, well, Delta, A Squadron of Delta were up the road from us, and they had the facility to get satellite imagery. And the joke was, our commander said, "No, we can't go to the Americans because of OPSEC." I think they didn't have a clue how tight the Americans' OPSEC actually was. We had local guys coming into our ops room, sweeping up like local Arabs, you know.
Wow.
So it was annoying. Again, I asked about, what the borders were like and various other things, and everything else was just coming back negative. So we went in basically half-cocked. That's a condensed thing to get me into that book there.
Amazing. And were you everybody had some sort of cold weather warfare type training in the regiment, and did you got more specialized training, or did everybody? What was everybody's level of cold weather warfare training?
Well, actually, there was Bob Consiglio. He was the youngest member of the patrol. He'd been an ex-bootneck Marine, and they'd worked in the snow. Then the rest of the guys, they were an air troop and mobility troop, and their backgrounds. Two of the guys had come from the parachute regiment. One had been an infantryman, and another had been an engineer. Then we had a New Zealand guy and an Australian in the patrol. So in terms of working in the cold, it was me that had the experience on that.
That's amazing. It's amazing also going back and just skimming through this, because I hadn't read it in so many years, but obviously you can tell it's well worn, because there weren't that many firsthand accounts between really Vietnam and when you wrote this book. So I tried to read everything I possibly could just to make myself a better operator, a better leader. And it's amazing how many parallels there are between this in 1991 and then 2001, 2002 in Afghanistan, suppressed weapons being one of them, not
absolutely
for more reasons than just making it quieter, but that muzzle flash.
Totally.
The enemy just hones in on that. And so we learned that. We had some similar experiences with maps, although of course we had some better maps, but Google Earth didn't exist yet in 2001. So we still had some of those old mapping issues as well. But it's amazing the similarities between this book and 10 years later after September 11th.
I think there was a key thing within the regiment, the SES, and this was in Gulf War II. It was under McChrystal, and he started Task Force Black, where he had the SAS and Delta work together, and 6, and bring them together and carry out missions. And then the regiment saw the equipment you guys had, and then started copying it from everything from the uniform down to procedures, weaponry, imagery, everything. And I think it was a good thing for us, because we were hanging on to your shirt tails in terms of how much development you guys were bringing along to the show, without a shadow. And when I now look back at, say, what we were dressed in when we deployed into Iraq to what the guys have got now, it's just light and day, or day and night, sorry.
Yep, no, totally different. Just the way that warfare pushes that innovation, both tactics and obviously equipment as well, over a protracted period of time. And, for us, it's interesting how things come, not really full circle, but how there's so many similarities between our military starting our counter-terrorist focused units back in the early 80s, late 70s, and putting all that together based off the SAS and based off Charlie Beckwith's experience, which I think was his exchange was in the 60s.
Yes.
And then, commanding Project Delta in Vietnam, and then starting our Tier 1 counterterrorist units later in the late 70s. But looking at you guys and looking at what you guys were wearing, what weapons you guys were using, what the tactics you guys were using. Of course, Princess Gate happens there. All those lessons learned, and then taking those and applying them to what we're focused on in the United States, and then having all this time with just flashpoints, with Grenada, with Panama, Mogadishu, but not sustained combat operations like we had in Vietnam. So there are these little flashpoints that you could grab a few lessons from, and there was obviously a ton in this. And for you guys, when you went in there, I mean, I don't think like you were using actual gear from essentially the Second World War II, like your overcoats and like
That's right.
that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And gosh, what were you wearing? What weapons did you
Well,
use, and what kind of
well,
kit did you have
when,
on as far as
yeah, when
insulation?
we were tasked to go in there, there was no. We had the 110 Land Rovers, what we used to call the Pinkies. They were the long wheelbase Land Rover, and they were a good platform, a weapons platform. But they had all gone to A&D Squadron, so we were left with what we would call a 90 Land Rover Defender, and they were next to useless. There was no weapon platforms on them, and we were going in as an 8-man patrol. So we decided not to take the vehicle. We would walk in. Well, we'd fly in, and then we'd walk to our observation point. So our personal kit, our smock, that dated back to 1942.
Wow.
Useless crap. Each
Gosh.
man had basically around about 120 pounds to 150 pounds, depending on what radio system they had in. We obviously had our belt kit, which was around about 40 pound. I had a 203. Some of the lads had 16s, and a couple of them had the minimies. We then had a jerry can each of water, and a couple of sandbags with extra rations and the NBC suits, because there were still rumors that they had these weapons of mass destruction, or they were going to gas us, which it was crazy.